Hey everyone, welcome back to Xaynew Stories, and this is Office Talk Tuesdays.
Head of client IT thinks my firm is trying to get him fired. He proceeds to get himself fired. Story number 1 posted in malicious compliance. Be careful what you share at work. Tofu Disan writes, I was told I can only communicate with 2 people. Okay then, this happened a few years ago, but I think it fits the sub. I was working as an IT consultant for a very niche pharmaceutical firm. My role was to provide a production support position. I was told I was only allowed to communicate with 2 specific people on client side. One was the head of IT and the other was his substitute. This was an email that clearly and in no uncertain terms stated that I was only allowed to communicate to those 2 individuals and they would handle communication with the business side after I sent my root cause analysis of product incidents. I thought that was strange, but I was informed that the head of the IT felt threatened by our company and thought we were there to threaten his job. So I was told to play nice so he would realize we really were there to help. So for a few months, I would sign in on and check various systems for logs for processing errors and failures. I would determine the issue and fire off an email with my findings and solution suggestions. Then one day, I get called into my director's office. He says the client is pissed off and wants to know what I've been doing because they see me log on and nothing else all day. I tried to tell the director what I do, but then he doesn't listen. He even put me on performance improvement plan. Next thing I know, I am in a meeting with 8 vice presidents from my firm. It is very clear they plan to fire me by the end of the meeting. At this point, I ask if I can just show them my email history. I show them the email that states I can only communicate with 2 specific people on the client side. I then show them the emails I sent those 2 people as instructed, providing my analysis and suggested process improvements to handle the exceptions in the log. Suddenly, 8 VPs no longer want to sacrifice me to appease the client. Instead, they take the evidence to that client. A week later, I found out the client's head of IT was escorted out of the building by security and that apparently a college buddy of his wanted the support contract. IT head figured he would just make my firm look bad in order to cancel our contract and get a new contract for his pal. How the head of IT didn't consider that a digital trail existed is mind-boggling. He was worried about us taking his job away and made it into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Funny enough, I have a few more stories from that contract. You know, OP, from the things that I've read in Reddit, especially in the IT side, if there's one thing that you don't want to do is piss off a lot of the IT people because they can do a lot of things to screw people off. But I guess this IT doesn't know that. Truly ironic. Story number 2, posted in Pro Revenge. You want special treatment? I would love to. Lil Bitty Pretty One writes, once upon the before time in 2015, I worked my way through nursing school as a waitress in a restaurant. This restaurant did not advertise. They prided themselves on word of mouth for their popularity. This is important. I had been there for several months at this point and had proved myself reliable and knowledgeable enough to help train new waiters. Not technically a trainer, but could be relied upon to support new workers once the trainers set them loose. We had an older guy who had just been released. He was a little awkward, little shy, and worried about mistakes. Absolutely expected, and he was great to work with. On the night of our tale, he was in the section next to mine. Easy to keep an eye on and easy to hop in and prop him up when he hits a snag. This was his first night with his own complete section. I know problems would arise. I was ready. What he wasn't ready for was his first demanding round of table, about 6 people, 20-ish year olds with an attitude. He came to me worried and confused. They want X, Y, Z's, but I don't think that's on our menu, right? She says we have the ingredients and just make it. The other location makes it all the time. Yes, I could have taught him to stand his ground, but nerves and first night with your own section isn't the time to go over this. So I told him to ask the back line and see if they were willing to make it. If not, I would talk to the table and settle everything. The cooks were fine with it, so no problem from our end. This was apparently the cue for the leader of the table to demand something every time he came to the table. As soon as he bought the last requested item, she needed something else. I thought it was possible and had been keeping an eye on him. Seeing his panic face, I gave him a nod and started checking in on his other tables, slotting them into my own tables. This is the reason I'm paired with him. This carried on for their entire meal, incredibly needy and demanding his full attention with zero apology or kindness. I made sure to catch him in the back to prepare for the possibility of getting no tip, as well as to calm the panic and to remind him I would not be touching the tips from his other table. Honestly, this poor guy looked like he was about to quit on the spot. This leader was rude, impatient, and gave him no space to breathe. I was his emotional support animal at this point, but knowing he was at least twice my age made it even worse for him. The table had come in close to the end of the night and ended up staying past our section's closing, so they were the last table on our side of the restaurant. That's when he came to me asking how to do an employee discount, and apparently they wanted him to use his employee discount for their meal. Afterwards, he was asking if that was okay. I was confused, like, wait, employee? That's when he shared that she had spent the entire meal berating and making fun of him because 1. She was a trainer at our other location, and 2. He was the worst waiter she had ever seen. No wonder the other locations made her special meals, and zero surprise he was such a complete wreck. On top of that, she was claiming there were multiple birthdays in the group, so free cakes all around, and she wants the birthday song immediately. To say I was livid is saying lava is warm. I was ready to throw hands for this poor man. Instead, I told him to prep the cake but don't go out yet. I would ask the boss about the employee discount. Note, this is not needed, we could do it ourselves, but this was such a special case. And I would gather the workers for the birthday song. Our managers there were absolutely amazing. We loved each one, and all of them had our backs. Very rare in restaurants, so this is almost the best part. I gave the front-end boss a quick rundown of the table antics. Remember the word-of-mouth restaurant mentality? Yeah, the boss was not having a restaurant employee acting so cruelly even if she wasn't his employee. I asked permission for what I wanted to do. He smiled and gave permission as he grabbed the employee numbers given for the discounts, which that trainer would have known could not be stacked, and told me he had a boss-to-boss phone call to make. I then ran to every employee I could grab. Remember, half the restaurant was closing down, so we had several people available, including a dishwasher, and gave them each the fastest explanation of the table and the plan. And then I told the poor nerve-wracked server that we were ready to drop the cakes. The crowd that arrived to that 6-person tabletop was honestly the largest we had ever had for a birthday song, and I am pretty confident the largest the restaurant will ever have. We served free cakes in front of every seat, and the leader had the most self-satisfied smirk as we all grinned ecstatically and lined up to sing. And oh, did we sing! We all sang the birthday song as loud as possible. Please do recall they were the last table in the section, and for your imagination, I should mention this table was in the corner as well, so while we were screaming the birthday song, it was bouncing back from that corner as well, and it was an excruciatingly long song. Their smiles dropped immediately, and hands covered their ears as they jumped with the audio onslaught. I know it hurts my ears, and that pain is something that still makes me smile to this day. We all stood there, giant group, happily screaming our restaurant's special happy birthday song, and it still warms my heart a decade later. More than that, while we were gathering and planning and destroying eardrums, our boss was making phone calls in the office. Yes, he called her restaurant manager and informed them of the behavior, and no, she didn't get stacked employee discounts. She didn't get her discount at all. I know because I was there when she was handed the phone from my front-end manager. When she started to cry and tried to make her excuses for why she shouldn't be fired, the general manager, one step below from the owner, since this was a small company with very few locations, had already been called, and her employee number had been shared, and she was basically done. I'm not a psychic. She could have gone back to her home location and convinced someone to hire her back. Anything is possible. I would have almost given up joining in that screaming song to be able to hear those phone calls. You know, if there's one thing I know, working in the service industry is very difficult. I worked in one a couple of years ago, and honestly, it was probably the worst experience I ever had. People think that if they're paying, they can treat you in any way they can. And really, it just shows the type of level of education they grew up on.
If you enjoyed these stories, like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. This is Xaynew Stories, and I'll see you on the next one.